Good morning. I am Dr. David Alexander, an associate professor in the Energy Systems Unit at the University of Trinidad and Tobago, and I will be the moderator for this morning's forum on the energy and mining transition, a global perspective. This forum is being hosted by the University of Trinidad and Tobago in collaboration with the Embassy of the Republic of Turkey in Port of Spain and the Consulting Caribbean Limited. I wish to acknowledge Her Excellency Ambassador Benyu Yitgidan of the Republic of Turkey and Dr. Dixie Rampersad, Professor of Practice, Business Development Manager, NSRIC Incorporated. And today we have the opportunity to hear from two leading international experts, Professor Herbert Suku and Dr. Alil Yitgidan in the fields of energy and mining. On today's agenda, we will have opening remarks by Her Excellency, Ms. Yitgidan, followed by presentations from the two international experts. After both presentations, we'll open the floor for questions, and then we'll close with a vote of thanks by Her Excellency. You can post your questions on the YouTube chat, and I will take those questions and relay to the presenters. We will now have the opening remarks by Her Excellency, Ms. Yitgidan from the Republic of Turkey. You will need to unmute your mic, Her Excellency.
Good morning, Honorable President of the UTT, Professor Persad, and dear Professor Alexander, Honorable Professor Suku, dear Ms. Rampersad from Consulting Caribbean, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor to welcome you today on behalf of the Embassy of the Republic of Turkey in Port of Spain. I am grateful to the University of TT and for hosting this forum. I would like to thank especially to the President of the UTT, Professor Persad, for enabling this event and for his support. I would also like to thank Professor Suku and Mrs. Rampersad for their cooperation and for introducing me to the UTT President. Ladies and gentlemen, our diplomatic ties with Trinidad and Tobago were established in May 1972. This means that we are now celebrating the 50th year of our relationship. I think that this friendship deserves more attention. Our embassy was established only in 2018 in Port of Spain, and we are accredited to 7 countries and to 2 international organizations in the region. TT does not have an embassy in Turkey yet, maybe in the future. Our aim is to promote our country and to intensify our ties with the Caribbean region in general, and especially with Trinidad and Tobago in various fields. Due to COVID, many activities could not be realized and social contacts remained very limited. Yet the situation is, I think, improving now. The cooperation in the academic field is one of the areas that we should exploit. Therefore, today I am really happy that we started a collaboration with the UTT, and I am sure that this cooperation will continue in the future. So the embassy is here, my staff is here. If you have any questions or suggestions, please reach to us and we can talk about everything. So now I thank you all the participants, all the speakers, and wish us all a very successful forum. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for those greetings, Her Excellency. We will now move into our first presenter for today, Professor Herbert McDonald Morrison Suku. Professor Suku is a distinguished faculty in engineering economics, professor of mining and minerals resource engineering advisor, author, and speaker with a wide range of perspectives relating to engineering, economics, and environmental sustainability. His work is focused on research and policy creation, design and evaluation for commercialization of hydrocarbons, metallics, industrial mineral resources, and renewable energy. Professor Suku's career began in 1978 with the Ministry of Petroleum and Mines. And in 1988 to 1995, he was a CDI, ECC, ACP, UNDP Project Caribbean consultant before he moved to Trinidad in 1991. In 1992, he went to Alberta Oil Sands Technology Research Authority as a visiting scientist for research activities in tar sand exploration and processing. He was also a Foreign Office overseas consultant to the government of Bermuda and partner of the International Development Consultancy of Bermuda from 1996 to 2000. And thereafter in the Trinbagonian, Canadian, and UK private sectors, he worked in a wide range of companies. For example, Kusal's group of companies from 2000 to 2002. He was the CEO of several institutions, National Quarries Company Limited from 2002 to 2004, and Aggregate Industries Limited from 2004 to 2005. He was also the CEO of Vega Minerals from 2005 to 2010, and he was also president and director of Geominix Tecos joint venture in 2012. He is also the co-founder of the Quarry Association of TTO, past presidents of Mineral Exploration Society of Wales in the UK from 1985 to 1986, and QATT from 2001 to 2003. He was also a director of State-owned National Quarries Company Limited from 1992 to 1996 and in 2000. And he served in the Cabinet Advisory Committee on Blasting and Use of Explosive in Civil Engineering Works from 1993 to 1996. And he was also the chair of the Science and Technology Human Resource Training Development Committee for the quarrying industry in 2007. Professor Suku holds a PhD in Process and Utilities Engineering from the University of Trinidad and Tobago, a MSc in Chemical Engineering, focused on petroleum, from the University of the West Indies, a BSc with honors in mineral exploration from the University of Cardiff, Wales, and a professional certificate in quarry management from the Doncaster University and the Institute of Quarrying in England. I'll now turn the session over to Professor Suku. Over to you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Professor David Alexander. It has been some time since we have met. Thank you for that very, very detailed introduction. Most importantly, Your Excellency, Bengu Yigitunin, Professor Halil Yigitunin, conference organizer Dixie Rampasad, UTT friends, listening audience, and the public. Today, I'm going to have a look at the other side of the business. In fact, let me just share my screen. Right. My focus today would be on mining and minerals. Sorry, I'm lost there. On mining and minerals transition in the Caribbean region. Normally, when you hear about transitioning in today's world of climate change, you will hear about energy transitioning. But of course, minerals play an important role in the development of society since history, and we know that. And in fact, with the new laws and protocols that are being rolled out from the United Nations and all of the major committees, you'll find that it's important that we look at various strategies to deal with climate change as it relates to mining. My presentation today will be based on the following, as you see on the slide. I will go through climate change strategies relevant for transitioning, sustainability in minerals exploration and exploitation today, some of the environmental solutions that have been proffered over the years, new Caribbean minerals and renewable energy, gold as a strategic mineral, minerals of the future, how do mines and mining activity contribute to climate change, on what of technical solutions that can be put in place and that are in evolution to ensure that we have this seamless transition into the next 50 years towards the end of the century. Who is a world leader and in certain aspects of decarbonization? Caribbean minerals, hydrocarbons, conventional, unconventional hydrocarbons, new technologies, and sustainable framework. We'll never consider that the Caribbean is a big region in terms of minerals development, primarily because we are small island developing states with fragile ecosystems, limited land space, and finite natural resources. These countries in the CARICOM region are vulnerable to external environmental and economic shocks. Given their locations, they are vulnerable to natural hazards, including hurricane, floods, earthquakes. Past economic activities have tended towards emphasizing economic and social stability, sometimes to the detriment of the environment. And we must note clearly that mineral resources are finite. In fact, our land space is so small. What are we in the Caribbean doing in developing our mineral resources in small island developing state? Now, it all depends on the country you're in, the technical agendas that are based upon specific governments, legislation, and licensing regimes. For instance, in Jamaica, in Santo Domingo, in Haiti, Guyana, and Trinidad and Tobago, there are various protocols and various laws that have been rolled out over the years. But have these laws and regulations been very effective in delivering for us the development of our minerals? Primarily as implementation of these laws call for various protocols in part or whole relating to policy development, audits, quarrying or mining operations, overseeing personnel to implement and execute technical work. In spite of this output, decision-making process is varied. Unlike Guyana, Jamaica, Haiti, to name a few, Trinidad and Tobago lags far behind in mineral resource governance. And this is primarily because of the focus on the oil and gas and conventional oil resources that has served us really well in the last 100+ years. One of the things that the World Bank can be quoted as saying, limiting carbon footprint of minerals for the clean energy transition may offer double wins, helping to boost economic growth and reducing environmental risk in resource-rich developing countries. For example, Sustainable Development Goals 13 takes urgent action to combat climate change and its action. Now, how can this be applied to the Caribbean region? Where are our mines? Where are we faulting on our investment in climate change? As we go along, we'll be able to have a look. The climate change approach started as an environmental issue a long time ago in the 80s and is now being seen as an economic, social, and technological issue that needs multifaceted solutions. The chart to the right of the screen will give you that relationship between all of the various nodes and activities within the confines of business and natural decision-making that needs to be addressed. You can have a look at this when you review the presentation online at YouTube. In keeping with mining, we have to look at the environmental strategic governance discovery processes in mining companies if we are to move forward. The mining companies are few and far between locally in the Caribbean region. but most of the huge companies come from abroad, from the first world and the, areas and developed countries. And one of the critical things that has been done and is moving forward, as the Petroleum Developers Association of Canada says, they have been attempting to ascertain these environmental sustainable goals and governance values and priorities within each company. The companies have been asked to develop their framework and identify the next step for development and carrying out the work of mining. And one of the critical things is when you're talking about money and cash flow analysis and all of that, you've got to design your KPIs, track and disclose the activities that you're doing to ensure that you have environmental compliance as it relates to extracting materials from the ground. Secondly, the strategies that are required for discovery processes are defined under 3 areas. We have the current state, where risks are many, complex, and interconnected. ESG disclosures add an additional layer of complexity and risk. Community relations is a showstopper, so you got to get in there early. If the stakeholders decide that they don't want you in the business and they want you out because you have done something wrong, forget it, that's the end of your corporation. And climate change strategy is the expectation, because carbon dioxide is increasing and you have to ensure that you reduce over time the amount of carbon dioxide that you're putting into the atmosphere. Also, bankers and investors, they have their considerations as well. In fact, investors hate risk and are data driven. So for instance, a mining company will say, we are doing this. The bank will say, are you doing it the best way? What is your governance priorities? How are you going to get involved in climate change, and what kind of protocols are you putting in every sequence of your mining activity to reduce the carbon dioxide to almost zero state transition? And also, what are the shared social values that you will have between yourself and your stakeholders? They have also implored that you must be certain of your financial, material, ESG issues, and detailed reporting, whether it's at the board level, must be supported by a real strategy and pathways and targets. Then the major question is asked: where as a mining company do we begin? What do we need to do? Climate change is a big thing, and therefore we don't have an idea because we have not been doing it for many years. In the Caribbean region, the business is not well developed, and therefore these might point you into the right direction. So the investors will tell you, you've got to ascertain your ESG profile, understand your risks, responsibilities, and opportunities to contributing to the development of reducing problems in the climate, involve leadership at the governance level. In fact, you'll find health and safety people at the lower level will be the ones who will go out there and do the work, but not often that information passes up to the executive management and to the board of directors. The board of directors as a leader must be responsible for this. Also, the companies must engage external stakeholders. A sustainability framework is suitable for all sizes of exploration and mining companies, and it is known that sustainability is unique to each company, its products, and its size. In Canada, just recently, in November of 2019, the Quebec Mineral Exploration Association first rolled out an ecology certification based upon a standard launched by Quebec's Exploration Association. And in fact, when companies develop sustainability for their exploitation practices for today and even in the future, they are awarded with these certifications. And in fact, it will continue in the near future, where every company must provide their information so that they can become certified. Now, some of the things that we need to look at would be environmental solutions. We must recognize the findings of the International Resource Panel related to sustainable management of metal and mineral resources and the need for further action, as well as the findings of the UNEP on mine tailings storage and UNEP grid on sustainable sand mining. Why sand mining? Sand is just a fine-grained material used in concrete and other things, but sand is taken out of rivers. When you go into rivers in many of the countries of the world, and especially in the Caribbean region, excavators go down into the river, takes out the sand, and what happens? The biodiversity of the rivers on land are disturbed, and then down the road, you find that it ends up as a marine problem. We often find that, let's take the case of Trinidad and Tobago, for instance. There are laws, but there are laws. We have almost 150 unauthorized, illegal, authorized mining operations. And that could never be in terms of developing a framework for ensuring that we get anywhere in terms of climate change. Also, the panel recognizes that sustainable management of mineral and mineral resources contributes significantly to achieving sustainable development goals. In fact, we are close to 2030 when it's due, but what happens on January the 1st, 2031? We'll say, let's get a new policy, let's start all over again, because I don't think many of the companies in the Caribbean region will be ready for sustainable development goals. The resource panel underlies the need for the sharing of knowledge and experiences on a regulatory basis. We have to look at some of these laws, implementation practices, technologies and strategies, and for sustainable management of metal and mineral resources, including over the whole life of the mine and the post-mining stage. And the life of a mine runs about 30 years initially, which is based on cash flow analysis and project determination, but in fact, it lasts a lot longer than that. Requests have been made of the executive director based on relevant reports such as those by the UNEP International Resource Panel and UNEP Grid to collect information on sustainable practices, identify knowledge gaps and options for implementation of strategies, and undertake an overview of existing assessments of different governance initiatives and approaches on sustainable management of metal and mineral resources, and report to the 5th session of the United Nations Environment Assembly. Governments, businesses, and non-governmental organizations, academia, and international institutions are encouraged within their different competencies to promote an awareness of how these extractive industries can contribute to sustainable development, look at due diligence and best practice along a supply chain, addressing broader environmental, human rights, and all the other related labor conflict-related risk in mining, etc., etc. Capacity building is a critical element of determining sustainable management of metal and mineral resources, including the management of major hazards, as well as addressing mine closure requirements and the remediation of contaminated sites, including abandoned mines. What is critical, and in the Caribbean region, within the law, you have performance bonds and you have environmental management bonds. However, less than 5% of companies operating in the Caribbean have signed these environmental management bonds, and therefore it is difficult to revert to getting the area redeveloped, restored, and it's something that needs to be looked at with research, development, and technological innovations. And I will keep on going because I know I have a limited time. There's so much I would like to talk about. But one of the things when we look at the paleohistory of the Earth, you can see how our beloved Earth has developed, and I'm taking it from about the area 650 million years ago in the late Proterozoic, where you find a lot of minerals and good elements that can be used for sustainable climate change. You also have an area as well in 514 million years ago, the late Cambrian. And one of the things you'll see, these are maps by Scotties done in 1979 to 2000 that shows you how plate tectonics caused the evolution of the Earth's land space. And you know, minerals function of subduction zones and uplifting land masses based upon the geochemistry of structural geology. The middle of Ordovician, 458 million years, there was a lot of minerals emerging at that time. Then the middle Silurian, let's go again here. Early Devonian, early Carboniferous, early Triassic, 273 million years ago, late Permian, early Jurassic, late Jurassic, middle Eocene, and we come all the way down to the glacial maximum 18,000 years ago. The modern world, as we see it, looks like this. And you would have seen a change based on plate tectonics over the time. And the minerals are deposited on subduction zones and on zones of upliftment, all right? And these are all within the major continental mountains of the world. And these are the areas where we have to look for these things. So relevant to us here, in the late Jurassic, 152 million years ago, you found the Trinidad landmass evolve, okay? Then late Cretaceous, 94 million years ago, you had the Albertan, Utah, Mexican, Guyanese, and Nigerian landmasses coming up. So within these areas, let's go to climate change and mining for certain types of minerals. There are critical new elements and new minerals that are required for renewable energy. And some of these are flagged as cobalt, lithium, rare earths, tellurium. As well, gold is a strategic mineral. We depend, however, on other things that are less friendly or less stable. The Southern African nations of Zaire, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Botswana, South Africa, for example, are major suppliers of such strategic minerals as chromium, gold, platinum, vanadium, manganese, and diamonds. And these are some of the minerals that are required in our lead up to climate change for use in facilities and infrastructure like motors, electricity generation, and all of that. Is gold used as a renewable energy? The future is now. Gold is used in aircrafts, also in renewable energy, and emerging technologies allow it to happen. Gold is an essential part of the technologies that shape our lives and our future, and gold nanoparticles improve the efficiency of solar cells. So of course, in the Caribbean region, you have a significant amount of gold. You also have aluminum, you have lithium, manganese, nickel, silver, steel, zinc, etc. And it has to be extracted as we move along to provide for the raw materials that will fuel our climate change. And we come up on green mining. Is there anything like green mining? Green mining, proposed by Canadian Natural Resources Canada, says that technologies, best practices, and mine processes that are implemented as means to reduce the environmental impacts associated with extraction and processing of greenhouse gases. So we have to take a page out of the Canadian and European approaches to examine how we look at our earth extractive industries in the Caribbean region. There's a lot more information here, but in terms of time, I will try and move on and move quickly so I can get most of the information covered. So back in '93, I wrote a little paper called Welcome to the World of Mining. And during that time, I examined what were the most sought after Caribbean minerals. These included bauxite. You know, Guyana and Jamaica were the largest producers of bauxite in the world. And you have bauxite also in Suriname, Dominican Republic, and Haiti. There's also a large quantity of copper in the Dominican Republic, Haiti, Jamaica, Cuba, and in Tobago, the other half of Trinidad. Nickel is found in Cuba, Dominican Republic. gold in Suriname, Guyana, Dominican Republic, Jamaica, Haiti, and you won't believe you have loads and loads of diamond in Guyana and Suriname. And all these are some of the sustainable, renewable types of minerals that our goodly Professor Halil will agree with me about. He's a minerals man, so I think he will see my point on this. Okay, there's also gypsum. And of course, you know, for years, David, have been flagging the idea of tar sands. Tar sands is an unconventional hydrocarbon, but you have to mine it. And it's something we need to look at in terms of how we can sustainably mine tar sands in Trinidad and Tobago. And that we have had a process created that was presented at the Russian Academy of Science last year, where a significant input was made into the decarbonization by that paper we presented at that conference. It's something that we need to look at. So bauxite, copper, nickel, gold, diamonds, common salt, gypsums, tar sands, industrial rocks and minerals were some of the major things. And throughout the Caribbean region, there is a lot, but there is limited investment. In investing in new businesses, we find that we must ensure that we put the right SDGs protocol in place. This is an example here of Trinidad and Tobago. Over 100 years, we drilled more than 20,309 historical wells. These wells were used to extract resources, and now we've got to continue looking at it to ensure that we develop it. So with this in mind, I would like to move to one of the solutions to developing our Caribbean region, because it will take a lot of development and a lot of funds to get in there. And we move to satellite technology. Satellite technology today is important in giving us the fastest and most reliable way of exploring for minerals in the Caribbean region. In fact, you don't have to drill wells. You don't have to go there and collect samples until you actually define what your areas are. And I look forward to sharing more information with you in the future. We don't have to imagine anymore how we're going to do it, where the funds will come up. We got to look at our sustainable mineral science, engineering, economics, and development prospects for taking the Caribbean region further. And I'd like to thank you very much. There are so many things that we need to look at, but in positioning, and I'm closing off here, the satellite information and new technologies will assist us ensuring that we have good details in techno-economic studies, geoscience validation, engineering validation, process engineering styles, fatal flaw studies to include impacts of decarbonization, national and regional policy decision-making, business structures, benefits to the national and regional economy, project types for the investment, and last but not least, project funding based upon the requirements of ESGs. I thank you very much, and I look forward to your questions in the little chat line, and thank you very much again.
Thank you very much, Professor Suku, for that very comprehensive presentation. You touched on so many things. We don't have to imagine anymore, right? We don't have to imagine anymore. Technology is out there to help us improve in our processing and our prediction on how things are done. So Professor Suku gave us a really wide-ranging presentation, ranging from climate change to mineral exploitation with a focus on the Caribbean. We heard that Trinidad and Tobago is sort of lagging behind Guyana, Jamaica, and Haiti when it comes to mineral resource management and governance, because we have spent over the last 100 years focusing on oil and gas. But he is saying to us that we also need to look at a more sustainable economy by looking into mineralization and that type of production from mining and etc. We also heard about ESGs, what is Trinidad's potential. Some of those things will come up in our discussion today. We also heard about mining taking place in rivers that will affect our biodiversity. Then another question that came up is what will happen in January 1st, 2031? Right, so I mean, there's a lot to discuss moving forward after this presentation. But what we'll do is we'll move on to our second presenter, Dr. Alil Yurdakul Yitkudan, and he's an expert in energy economics, an energy economics consultant, and he's a consultant on energy economics, and he's a non-executive board member of the listed companies of CHS in Turkey. From 2013 to 2017, he served as the coordinator of the economic and environmental activities of the OSCE in Vienna, Austria. He advised several international companies. He was a board member of the steel pipe producer BMB Energy and a senior policy expert of the European Union MED ENEC project promoting solar energy and energy efficiency in the Mediterranean countries from 2004 to 2012. And as an undersecretary of the Turkish Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources, he took a leadership role in implementing energy market reforms from 1997 up until 2003. Prior to that, he served as the CEO of Fenis Holding, and he was also the chairman of the state's airport authority, deputy undersecretary of the Ministry of Transport, vice president of the mining, chemical, and banking group, Itabank, and group manager at the State Planning Organization. Dr. Yitkudan is an Eisenhower Fellow. He holds a diploma engineer and a doctoral engineer degrees from RWTH, Hu University in Germany, and docent associate professor degree from Inter-University Board of Turkey. So Dr. Yitkudan will speak to us today about the energy transition in Europe using Turkey as a case study. So I'll now turn this session over to you, Dr. Yitkudan.
Dear Dr. Alexander, I want to thank Honorable President Persat, Her Excellency Yitkudan, Professor Suku, Professor Rampersat, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I am honored to address this distinguished audience today about energy transition. What is energy transition? This is a pathway towards transformation of the global energy sector from fossil-based to zero carbon by the second half of this century. And what are our tools? Renewable energy and energy efficiency are more important tools. They have the potential to do this business by 90%. The World Economic Forum developed a benchmark, and this benchmark we see here based on two legs, on the system performance imperative and on transition readiness, enabling this transition. We see on this slide, the ranking calculated by the World Economic Forum, and the highest ranking 3 countries are Nordic countries in Europe, followed by other European countries except New Zealand in this regard. And my country, Turkey, ranks 63 on this chart. What are the tools of energy transition? We mentioned already, wind and solar are the main tools. There are also others certainly supporting wind and solar as renewable energy. geothermal. We are developing geothermal power generation and use of primary energy geothermal in our country, and also biomass. Biomass could play a good role in also in Trinidad Tobago, since there's a very good vegetation here. And low emission transport systems are also contributing to the reduction of carbon dioxide emissions, like rail-bound transportation, electro cars, buses, CNG, compressed natural gas buses, and LNG ships may also contribute to reduce the harm to the world. Another important topic is energy efficiency. Energy efficiency by buildings and industry. It's a very effective tool, energy efficiency, but unfortunately there is less capital available on the by financial institutions compared to renewable energy. And for the energy efficiency, to promote energy efficiency, your energy prices need to be high, that the individuals, companies, and so on inclined to invest in energy efficiency to get a short return of their investments. Important discussion is also during the recent years, reduction of the methane leakages by hydrocarbon producing countries. This became also quite prominent these days. How you can design a low carbon energy system? And we mentioned already renewables, especially wind and solar will play a prominent role, but both are intermittent energy sources. So you need a short-term and long-term backup for these renewable sources. What can use as a backup? We see hydropower can be with reservoir, hydropower with reservoir, or hydropower pumped storage hydropower can be used to support the electricity system from renewable energies. And interconnectors widely used in Europe because the countries are close to each other, and the European Commission is supporting this to strengthen the interconnections, existing interconnections within the European continent. Energy storage is the hot potato during the last years. How to create more energy storage to support the integration of renewable energy. This can be done by batteries. The battery prices are getting less expensive, cheaper, and thanks Professor Suku's research, maybe we got more, less expensive raw materials like nickel, manganese, cobalt, and the battery prices can be more reasonable. And also demand side management. So smart grids can regulate the flow of electricity by intermittent sources like wind and solar. And there is also a low carbon dioxide backup. This is natural gas. A lot of countries are opting for natural gas to support their development, the integration of the renewable energy, like Turkey, like Germany. So natural gas-fired power plants will play in the future also an important role in the transition, energy transition. I just want to show where Turkey lies. Turkey connects the Southeast Europe with Western Asia. So you can reach from Turkey 16 different time zones within one day, and with a population of 84 million and $800 billion US dollars GDP. Turkey is one of the countries having quite high GDP growth during the last 20 years, over 5% in average. And also public debt to the GDP is quite acceptable, below 40% and well below under the Maastricht criteria of the European Union at 60%. So Turkey is the sixth largest economy in Europe, with a well-developed also tourism industry and manufacturing industry. It's not everything shiny. If you see the consumer price index growing very fast during the last years, it is also affected by the by the strong depreciation of Turkish lira against the lead currencies like US dollar and euro. But nevertheless, the trade volume reached last year close to $500 billion. And the top three export markets are Germany, United States, and United Kingdom. And the top import markets are China, Russian Federation, and Germany. I want to just tell you a few words about the vulnerabilities Turkish sector. Turkey is highly dependent on energy. So we are importing coal, oil, and natural gas, also raw materials and semi-finished goods. And this is the strong vulnerability of the Turkish economy. So if you produce agricultural products, you need to import fertilizers. When you produce household appliances and motor vehicles, you cannot produce all parts. You import semiconductors, you import several parts from abroad, and they are all affected by the depreciation of the local currency. And similarly, cement and iron and steel industry is very much relying on energy imports. They are energy intensive industries, and additional by iron and steel, you import the iron ore from South America or scrap from US. And similarly by plastic, you need to import petroleum and some semi-finished products. This strategy, Turkish energy strategy, was formulated back in 2010 towards 2023. Why 2023? Because it's a centennial of the proclamation of the Republic. And this includes utilization of indigenous and renewable energy resources and increase the share of renewables in electricity generation. Diversification of energy supplying countries, it's very important because we are highly dependent on imports. Reduction of energy intensity by 20%. This is very important for energy transition. And Turkey's option was to introduce the nuclear energy into the energy mix. And fortunately, 4 units are under construction, and the EU Commission declared nuclear energy as a green energy source. And we need to increase the storage capacities to cope with the development in the renewables field. This is the primary energy mix of Turkey of the year 2020. 147 million tons of oil equivalent were offered to the market. Share of imports is by 70%. Share of fossil fuels still 83%, led by oil by 29% for transportation sector, and natural gas and coal for electricity generation. but we see the first shiny part, that wind and solar and geothermal already reach 10%. This is the development of the last 22 years. And you see in lila color, the solar, wind, geothermal at those days just by 1% and now counting 10%. So the installed capacity of Turkey reached last year, 2021, 99,000 or 99,000 megawatts, clearly increasing during the last year. You see in lila color the wind, solar, geothermal installations. It reached over 20,000 megawatt last year. Similarly, hydro in orange color, it reached 31,000 last year. Stagnating is coal in yellow color, and natural gas installed capacity is reduced in green a little bit during the last years because of the high natural gas prices. This is the short-term energy transition, short-term electricity generation transition. The last 3 years, even you can see here how the share of renewables increased in gray color here from 11.7% to close to 17%. So how can we promote generation from electricity generation from renewables? First of all, you need to have a legal framework. We started to develop this framework late of 90s, early 2001. I was responsible to bring to the parliament the electricity market law and natural gas market law. To promote renewables, there are two tools widely used in Europe. The early tool was feed-in tariff system. Germany was advocating very much with very high feed-in tariffs, this system. And the second system is introduced later, the auction model. Turkey adopted both models for its own needs. The feed-in tariff system, called YEKTEM in Turkey, is supported by local component bonus. So the generator who wants to benefit from the feed-in tariff can apply every year, or can opt every year whether they want to choose to sell to the market its electricity, generated electricity, or to sell to the feed-in tariff system. And this feed-in tariff system is applicable only for 10 years. And the local component bonus is applicable only 5 years. And the local component bonus determines the additional incentives according to the percentage of domestically manufactured components in the equipment. And we saw the benefits of it. So after passing 10 years, a remarkable industry developed. There are 77 companies in the producing wind equipments. So Turkey became the 5th largest wind equipment producer in Europe. The auction model introduced some 5-6 years later requires the successful bidders of the auctions to use already locally manufactured equipment. So there is no local component bonus here. The bidder who is offering the lowest electricity purchase price is the winner of the auction. And electricity purchase is guaranteed in this model for 15 years after signing the contract. First rounds auctions back in 2017 allocated 1,000 megawatts each for wind and solar to one generator. This changed in the meantime. I picked up two sources, wind and solar, to see the development. And here on the left side, we see the development of the wind generation capacity. During my time in office, early 2000s, there were only some 20 megawatts installed capacity. With the introduction of feed-in tariff, it reached last year 10,600 megawatts. And I mentioned already wind auctions. Second auction was realized in 2019. This time, 1,000 megawatt divided in 4 pieces. So 4 generators got those licenses. And both auctions, the prices were around 3.5 cents up to 4.5 cents, the purchase guarantees. So Turkey was using solar energy as a primary energy source since 1970s. After the oil shocks of the 70s, the customers were not able to use commercial energy, oil for heating of hot water, and so they introduced solar water heaters. It became a quite successful local industry, and Turkey has the third highest installed solar thermal capacity in the world. And it's an easy manufacturing, small say facilities can produce it and maintain it without rocket science. And since it's used quite intensively at the south and western coast and central Turkey, the use reached, in the meantime, 1 million tons of oil equivalent. But the use of the sun for electricity generation is quite new. So it started to develop 2014, but reached, nevertheless, last year 7,800 megawatts with quite fast speed. As I mentioned, the first auction back in 2017, it achieved a price of 7 cents US cents per kilowatt hour, but it included investment in production in a integrated factory, solar panel factory, plus research and development investment. So the new auction realized last year, it is called a mini auction because of the complaints from the industry. 900 companies applied, and they got lots of 5 to 20 megawatts with very competitive prices. I mentioned already that many countries will plan to use natural gas as a transition fuel. Turkey is highly dependent on natural gas. Last year, we imported 61 billion cubic meters of natural gas. And in the meantime, the trunk lines of the country reached 15,600 kilometers. And the distribution network within the metropolitan areas and cities, reaching nearly 60 million of population, is all private sector investment reached last year 140,000 kilometers. So the infrastructure is not done with it. So we have in the southeast of Turkey pipeline connection to Iran. We are importing pipe gas from Iran. In the northeast, we are importing natural gas from Azerbaijan, from the Caspian region. In the north, in the Black Sea, you see the two pipelines, the Blue Stream pipeline in the east and the Turkish Stream on the west, bringing natural gas from Russian Federation to Turkey. but Turkey was started early enough, 1990s, to build liquefied natural gas terminals to receive LNG from the world, to diversify its imports. The first one was built at the Marmara Coast close to Istanbul. The second one at the west coast close to Izmir. They are land-based LNG regasification terminals, and 3 FSRU units, the floating terminals, were built, one at the south coast, one in the west coast, and the other one at the northeast, still under construction. Essential for a functioning and stable natural gas system is also underground storage. We have one underground storage in the center of Turkey and the other one in the northwestern part of Turkey, but it's still not enough. And some expansion works is ongoing to have at least a spare capacity, storage capacity of 10% of yearly consumption. I am a staunch believer that energy transition should go hand in hand with market development. We developed the energy exchange in Istanbul in 2015, and with the spot market operations. And last year in June, the power futures market transactions started in the energy exchange Istanbul, and organized renewable energy certificates market transactions also started in June last year. And natural gas was a little bit late, 2018, the spot market transactions, and last year in October, the futures market transactions started in the market. In the meantime, the energy exchange Istanbul became the 4th largest energy exchange in Europe. So now I want to wrap up and discuss with you, are we on the right track or are we ready? I would say clearly no. The performance, investment performance of the last 6-7 years is quite good, but the potential is still not utilized. We need more energy efficiency investments. As I said, the capital is rare for energy efficiency investments, and one danger is because of the price developments in the world markets, the government started to subsidize both natural gas and electricity, and this is a very bad sign for energy efficiency. And in electricity market, we have still tariffs set by the regulator. These needs to be abolished in the future. And we need more market transparency. Why I say the public utility only generating 16% of the electricity in Turkey, the remaining is by private sector generators, can still influence the pricing on the market. And natural gas infrastructure, I mentioned, we need more underground storage capacity and maybe some more suppliers of gas. Natural gas market has a still long way to go to gas competition, and the transport sector needs a special focus because a lot of CO2 emissions are coming from the transport sector. 2 initiatives, one Turkish joint venture, the other one is Ford are investing in Turkey in electric car manufacturing, and also the rail-bound transportation urban systems is increasing, but it needs to be accelerated. In conclusion, a lot is done, but still a long way to go. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Dr. Gudan. We heard from Dr. Gudan what is the energy transition, what is the energy transition index, so that's something we need to pay attention to. We also got some information about the tools required for the energy transition, some concepts and ideas on how to design a low carbon energy system. We also heard that the hot potato is actually energy storage over the last year. It's something that a lot of focus had been paying attention to. And I mean, for all the researchers out there who are thinking about what to get involved in, we should think about energy storage. I'm sure some of us, for the first time, actually got to realize that Turkey has the third highest installed solar thermal capacity in the world after the US and China. So, I mean, that's very significant. And so what we will do now, for those viewing on the live stream to YouTube, you can use the chat to post questions that you may have for these two presenters, and I will relay those questions to these good gentlemen. Now, while we are waiting on those questions to come in, so we just have a few minutes for questions. We might have about 3 or 4 questions each. I'd really like to hear from you guys. I mean, from listening to what you all spoke about, it is clear that the message is that we need to have more sustainable energy economies. Whether we speak about mining, or whether we speak about climate change, or whether we speak about energy transition, energy is required for most of the things that we are doing. And so from what would be some of the key takeaway points that you all would want the listening and viewing public to know from your presentation? Professor Suku, we'll go with you first. Professor Suku?
Can you hear me there?
Yes, we can hear you. So what are some of the takeaway points you would like?
What I would like us to understand is that, and let us just talk for the Caribbean region, because there's so much work that has been done in other countries and all of that. The Caribbean region has a wealth of mineral resources. It needs to be developed. How are we going to develop this? We cannot just use the same old methodologies that we did previously, pre-independence, which was 1962 and thereafter. What we need to do is to ensure that we have proper structured and formal policy frameworks developed within the Caribbean region through CARICOM. And in fact, even in Haiti, as I found out when I did a lot of research in Haiti, Haiti had more structured and formal policy frameworks for development of their mineral resources. And that's something we need to recognize in the CARICOM region. If we can learn from the experience of Haiti, there is so many opportunities that we can gain from them. In fact, also, one of the things we looked at many years ago, in the Caribbean region, we have nodes of investment opportunities. We have rich guys, and then we have poor guys. We have rich financial guys, then we have rich mineral resources guys. They may not be financially viable, but we need to share our information, share our expertise and our technology, take the money, shift it from the rich areas, put it in the poor areas so we can develop with some kind of optimal way our resources. That's what the most important thing I would like. But it must be in an environmentally friendly.
Thank you very much, Professor Suku. Dr. Igudan?
Thank you very much, Dr. Alexander. Certainly, first of all, two issues. We need a legal framework to support the system, to allow investors to invest in the future in energy transition. Secondly, we need to reduce also subsidies. This is not always very popular by the governments, but there are tools. They are direct subsidies are for the people needing this support should be always available, but not everybody should enjoy low energy prices. So there must be some kind of push to use energy more efficiently and to encourage people to invest in energy generation. I saw just a question on the chats from one of the participants, I think, whether there is a ranking existing energy transition index in the Caribbean region. I don't know anything about the special index, but I saw it also in the index of the World Economic Forum. Unfortunately, Haiti is one of the last countries on this index with 111th ranking. I remember, I think Trinidad and Tobago was 85th and Jamaica 86th. But this doesn't mean that with some efforts, with energy transition efforts, countries can jump immediately within 2-3 years, 5, 6, 7, 8 ranks up. This happens every year, and the others, they do less, they go down. So it's very sensitive index.
So Dr. Yildirim, what would be some of the specific things that you would give as advice in terms of things that Trinidad and Tobago should do to move upwards in this energy transition index?
I think important is to create the necessary legal framework to promote new renewable energies to become part of our of the energy system here. In Trinidad Tobago is a lucky position to have natural gas. Natural gas is an essential part for me and for many countries to support the energy transition. So supported by natural gas to stabilize the system by intermittent renewable energy sources like wind and solar, it can be created a quite sustainable energy system by Trinidad and Tobago.
Dr. Yildirim, you mentioned the removal of subsidies, right?
Yes.
How easy is it to do something like that? Or how difficult is it? I mean, you know, removal of subsidies has always been a politically sensitive issue. What is your advice in terms of the way forward in removing subsidies on energy supplies?
It is very difficult. You know, you mentioned already that I worked also to promote energy efficiency and renewable energy in the Mediterranean region. Nearly all countries had very high subsidies on energy, and naturally the governments are afraid that it leads to unrest if they increase the energy prices and so on. But it's like a drug addiction. Once you start to subsidize, all the people get used to it. So I think this step-to-step development would be my advice to protect the most vulnerable of the country by paying them their bills to a higher amount, that they are sure that they will not lose their income by high energy prices. But then the others, they have a higher income, better income, could pay more and support the system, and also are more sensitive by using energy and promoting energy efficiency in their daily life.
Before I turn over to Professor Suku, I have one more question. It's from someone in the audience. They want to know what lessons can be learned from Turkey and Turkey's experience in the energy transition. So, Dr. Yildirim, that's for you. lessons learned from Turkey?
Lessons learned from Turkey, first of all, you need to create your system. There is no system one fits for everybody. So certainly your people, your experts should sit together and create a system, a model for your own country. When Turkey introduced these feed-in tariff system back at those days and offering only 7.3 cents per kilowatt hour feed-in tariff for wind, and a lot of people were furious because it was those days Germany was still having over 40 euro cents per kilowatt hour support. But if you create the necessary framework and give the confidence to the investors, then it can work certainly.
All right, thank you very much for that, Doctor. Professor Suku, I cannot help but ask, since you have so much experience in mining, what is TNT's potential for mining? Your mic is still muted, Professor Suku. Your mic is still muted. Your mic is muted on Zoom.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, sorry about that. One of the things about Trinidad and Tobago does not have the requisite mineral resources like in heavy metals and minerals and that kind of thing, like Guyana does, or Suriname does, or Haiti and Belize. Trinidad and Tobago is replete with infrastructural raw materials of a very high quality, okay? And therefore, if we have a mineral, regardless of what it is, we must apply and conform to one, legislative protocols. We must have good policy agendas. We must be able to train our personnel to embrace the technologies that will enable us to develop and move forward an industry. One of the things about the mining and the sand and gravel, it's a pet peeve I have, is that you have ways in the law of developing a mine or a quarry. You must have education and training, but at the end of the day, hardly you have a mine design for a hard rock quarry in the Northern Range or in Tobago or in the sand and gravel operations. And therefore, in doing that, we must retrain ourselves. And one of the things about training is that people must be on board with that. In fact, knowledge is something that we must find and we must use. And I know pretty soon there will be a local training program that will be run regionally for mining and minerals resources engineering that will assist to develop our personnel in the industry. And to tell you, you know, it's no secret, it will be happening at the UTT. You know, and I will always say, regardless of what, every one in the industry, from the member of the board of directors of the quarry company to the executive person or the man on the ground, must sit in the same class and understand the dynamics of technology for which everyone will be on the same page with. And that's our future, and that's what we need to do.
All right, so last question for you from Jamal Topi. He said, interesting presentation from the esteemed panel, and he had a question for you. He said, what kind of time frame is required to harmonize throughout the Caribbean as it relates to regional approach to sustainability? So in 20 seconds?
Yeah, as it is, we were looking to 2030, but then we'll say January 1st, 2031. So we have no time. It means, therefore, that governments and the governance, the ESG's principle must kick in immediately, and you must have everybody, all the stakeholders on board to begin to find and create that kind of a time frame. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I'd just like to take a few seconds to thank our viewers from the Caribbean region for participating with us today. Now we'll move to the vote of thanks for Her Excellency, Ms. Ikudan. So over to you, Her Excellency.
Thank you. As you know, energy is a very broad and complex subject. Today, we had the opportunity to hear only about some important issues in this area, but we acquired valuable information. Today, we also, for the first time, had the opportunity to talk about energy transformation in the context of the situation, achievements, as well as good practices in Turkey and in the Caribbean region. Now, our expert presenters left us really with a lot of questions to think about, and I'm very grateful for this. Once again, I would like to thank the UETT and especially the President, Professor Persat, and also to our moderator, our speakers, Mr. Rampersad, Mr. Mohammed, and all participants. I thank you for your attention and wish you a nice day and a pleasant weekend. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Her Excellency, and thank you to the viewing and listening audience and to our presenters for being with us today.